Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track by an act named Mr Streetz titled On My Grind. And if we switch over to here we have ourselves a track on the screen on YouTube and we're going to listen through it from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. It should be noted that I have listened to Mr Streetz before in these reviews, so it'll be good to check out more of his material, but anyways, let's go. Starting off with incredibly bombastic kind of Transformers-esque symphonic theme. Kind of catches your attention off the bat, doesn't it? I suppose that's the purpose of it, having it at the start.
Mr Streetz, though. I heard something crazy. I need to know if it's true. Is it true you've been rapping for a year?
Yeah.
And you made 60 songs in a year?
Yeah, just over a year.
You're like, I'm serious. I need to see this. I need to see this. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr Streetz.
Because that's pretty wild. I don't know if you guys have tried writing music before. Writing one song and doing it well can be difficult, but writing 60 is phenomenal. So I assume maybe he's just taken the best of these songs that he's written over the year and he's putting it towards his output, his career, which I think is a smart idea. If you just release everything you make, sometimes you might end up with some stuff that you're like, oh, that was average. I could have potentially avoided having that in the open. You've got to do some filtering, you know? On my grind.
Yo, come on, let's go.
Well, it's great to see him playing live. Apparently he's doing a tour at some point soon, which is dope, so that'll be great. But also just the acoustic drum kit, the shakers, the little sort of string theme there. It's all very kind of full of sounding, kind of pretty.
10
Very
nights
abstract.
out of the ends, I get withdrawal. Getting nerves like I'm moving on to big school. Got the stress starting point out mid-sleep, but I'm awake when I draw for the pistol. Big tools, I carry round like a builder. She missed me, so I went and fulfilled her. Headphones on, so I block the crap. Better prep yourself when I circle back. I've heard the chat, so I know it don't mean none. I swerve adults who act like children. How you immature at your big old age? Cause you ain't got a good life, so you live off hate. I'm big on pain, you can't win with no fight. Don't start conflict, but I'm in it more time and I'm beefing a lot. Trying to throw me off pace, but I'm in it to win it. I ain't here to be liked.
I mean, I like the fact that he's going between the single takes and the double tracks on the side. I'm assuming this is the studio version, but it's just really important to know that a person can play live so they actually have a chance at a career, you know. And I know there's a lot of bedroom producers out there, but you need to do shows to really figure out if you've got a literal audience or not. There is a sense of trepidation to the musical theme behind his vocals. It makes sense with the story he's telling, talking about people and kind of like sifting down on them.
Head down, chest. Man, I serve bricks, make peas, it's not hard, and I'm certain that I'll blow with my bar. Stay focused, on job, on my task. They bring you down if you let them start. I don't bargain with them, no, I let them start. They're trying to stop my journey, and that makes me laugh. Yeah, I heard that. Heard what? A burnout. Never underestimate the power of now. I don't burn out cause I never think of the past. What's done is done, it's never coming around. The speak
About the things you did the past 5 years. In that time, there's been so much shit and done so much that time is like
light years. It's a long way away from this. Surprises and they're not welcome. I've had shit that could knock some down, but not me. When I'm thrown in the deep end, buoyancy. I'm standing up tall while you're on your knees. I run through the hurdles and through the purple rain. Hot souls on my heels of flames. I hold out, it'll be a long game, but we know who's giving up in the end. Shame.
Who we know is giving up in the end. Shame. Interesting line. Interesting line. He's really setting a precedent of the us versus them scenario there lyrically. It's great to have him going to the live event. His actual vocals, the sound of them with the crowd interacting with him. It's really positive to hear that. That itself is a flex. Because again, unless you're playing live and unless you've actually got a crowd, how much of a professional musician are you, you know?
Head down, chest out, a strong heart, got a bird
Like, unless you can prove that, I suppose.
Blow with my bar, stay focused, on job, on my task. They bring you down if you let them start. I don't bargain with them, no, I let them start. They're trying to stop my journey and that makes me laugh. Can't break
Great
down
transition
the man
with the toms.
Teflon mindset, and my Teflon's priceless. I pay any amount to live what I've and diamond, making the most unbreakable will, unshakable skill. I take to the hills, go and push me or put me in a box or cage. I still feel like a beast now anyway. A savage, I ravage the field I'm in, and I'm building the base, man. I'm built for this. I'm the
It would have potentially have been good to have some variation with the tom fills in between the sections. Like, I understand that they're cool sounding on their own, and the panning of them in the mix kind of makes it sound like they're going from left to right with the different parts of the kit. But it's a transition we've had a few times now. Everything else is really dope though.
Promises kept, I'm a real man. I'm happy for a man when he wins. I can't say the same for the rest. When they're put to the test, they crumble and give me shit. But I keep my head down, chest out, a strong heart. Got a bird with 3 cats and 1 dog. Man, I serve bricks, make peas, it's not hard. And I'm certain that I'll blow with my bars. Stay focused, on job, on my task. To bring you down if you let them start. I don't bargain with them.
Great.
Come on, people. Thank you very much.
I was kind of trippy there because it kind of sounded like I was at the gig, if that makes sense. I was like, is it going through my speakers?
Make sure you're there for the next one.
Yeah. He just said, make sure you're there for the next one. So real quick before we go forward. I mean, I don't know if he's talking about the person after him literally or at the next kind of concert. But it's just really important that if you are at a gig and there are musicians after you, that you really try and encourage people to not just stay for you, but to also to stay for them. Let the people after you get some love, you know. Even if you're kind of a show starter, the opener, and you're kind of salty about having to get the crowd warmed up for him, just be good to your people that you're gigging with. You know, it's really important. Take it from someone who didn't learn that lesson until it was probably too late. Because this is the conclusion of my review of this track by Mr Streetz titled On My Grind. What I think this track is about, I think it's about someone who is talking about being on his grind. He's working really hard. He's not allowing himself to be distracted by people who think that he's not going to succeed. He's basically trying to make the most of what he can out of a situation, growing as a musician, developing his career a year in with all these tracks. He's focused and he's dedicated and he's disciplined, and I think that that's a great thing to write a song about. It's not like it's unique, you know, thematically within the hip-hop and rap genre for people to be on the grind, but I think it's always refreshing when you know that a rapper is aware that they need to work. Just the same as in any other genre of music. Although I would say specifically, in this, there's just so much competition in hip-hop and rap nowadays, even with the old school stuff, that you really cannot afford to half-ass it. You really need to give it your all, and I think that in general, we didn't have that situation here. I thought it was really well done from a storytelling perspective. And there was a little bit of wordplay, like the slalom like Hercules part, and he was commenting on people's sort of like insecurities and psychological vulnerabilities and stuff, and kind of cutting them down and not allowing. He kept things simple for people who are passively listening, but also added a little bit of extra kind of depth in there for people who are really paying attention. So it's catering to both crowds, because you're going to get those at live gigs, especially if not like a digital streaming audience or whatever. I mean, ultimately, I think that's a really strong start from Mr. Streetz. I hope his tour goes really well. But his vocals were solid. He seemed charismatic and comfortable within his own shoes, both in the live video, but also just in the performance itself. It wasn't someone who had the first time on the mic. And I think, you know, for someone who's like been going for a year, that's remarkable. It's someone who maybe has even got like a real talent for it. And I wish him the best. Again, I have a lot of respect for people who get on stage and do their thing, especially like when even if you've got a backing track behind you, just to be able to rap on top of that and maintain and hold the stage and walk around and move about. I'm pretty sure that he proved that initial kind of like a hype guy, the guy who was presenting there or like doing the stage work for it. I'm pretty sure the MC, he proved the MC in the best possible way that he's capable of nailing it, and he did. You know, I was really stoked with the performance there. But the studio recording wise, he was comfortable with the performance. His expressions matched the words. There was a little bit of variety with the melodies there, but the focus is more on the rapping, and that's absolutely fine. You know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. He was relatively kind of like palatable with the theme behind it. The storytelling, the personality made sense with it, and all in all, just general really solid. The words came through clearly, and yeah, there was a little bit of variety with the phrasing of the different rhythms with the various lines there and stanzas, and it was enough just to get us through. You know, it was good. It was well done. The vocals being the focal point of hip hop and rap, there were no major issues here, and it's a really positive first impression, I think, for anyone who's either heard Mr. Streetz for the first time or is looking to go to one of his gigs. You know, outside of the vocals and the storytelling, the track is 4 minutes-ish, or just below 4 minutes because of the intro there. I think that the track with the kind of sitar or the guitar with that arpeggiated minor-esque kind of melody there that's looped throughout. I know I said initially they were like acoustic drums. The tom fills sounded like they were from acoustic kit, like from the 70s or something like that, like an old school kind of vibe. I'm pretty sure we were using a drum machine for some of the other percussive samples like the kicks and snares and stuff like that. The shakers were great. The bass line was thumping. There were overdubs for like the vocal parts and the chorus sections and some of the verse parts as well to add a little bit of extra emphasis to it. Things were double tracked and you know, there wasn't a whole lot of range with the motif. Like we had one line that kind of stuck with that root note the entire time. I think that compositionally it was well done. It's par for the course for the genre to not have a whole lot of variety with the different bass lines and chord progressions in it, because usually you have like one main idea and you kind of flow over top of it, and the vocals is where most of the variety and interest is. I remember saying that I wish there'd been a little bit more variety with the tom fills. I maintain that. It would have been nice occasionally to have had like a little bit more space where things weren't there as opposed to being there full. But I think that it made it more predictable for the listener. It's an easy listening track aside from the hard-hitting content within it. And I think that balances out to a nice sense of equilibrium there. So well done on that front. The theme itself, with all the combination of those different instruments, was like a minor sounding kind of atmosphere, and it really made you feel like you were climbing a mountain like a hill. You were kind of grinding away, needing to get yourself prepared for battle, but also the battle within yourself to not get distracted by everything else around you, all those competing factors for your attention. I think that it was made very relevant to the story that was being told. The calm, collected nature of the vocal performance made sense with it. There was a great synergy amongst the various elements. We came in and out in a way where we didn't overstay our welcome, and there was no filler. And ultimately, yeah, great stuff. Things are well connected. Aside from that, you know, it's just studio recording, mixing, and mastering now. Obviously, you know, like there was a difference between like the live recording and the studio version, which is a given because you're never gonna get like a phone recording or like however they recorded the actual footage from the live event to be the same as like when you're in a studio and you produce it like that, unless it's like one hell of a microphone, you know, they can record everything like that. But I still think the live take sounded great. You know, it sounded like a good time. And I think that the polish of the mix and the master within this like studio version is tight. I mean, we had a great balance with all of the drum, sort of string, bass, vocal parts, you know, and we never really were left wanting. There was nice variation again with the toms going over the stereo field there and the fill parts, the transitions. The vocals are nice and present in the mix, so the filtering EQ is nailed. You know, things were stacked nicely in the frequency spectrum, so there were no weird resonant frequencies there, no kind of weird loud kind of noises that didn't need to be there. Things sounded nice and balanced there. So you know, commercial grade. There was a nice gluing of all the individual components within the mix without being too much. So there was adequate dynamic range outside of that. The leveling in general was good of the various parts within the mix. And, you know, the double tracking of the vocals made them sound bigger at some point. So there were changes in energy levels, which I did appreciate. But basically, the track in general was nice and loud without pumping. And effectively, this is my quite positive review of Mr. Streetz' track On My Grind. It's good to see that they're making more music, and I wish them the best of luck in future, as well as again on their tour. And hopefully you enjoyed this track. And if you did, please do go check out their various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.